So a little bit about my situation. My daughter is in remission. She's been in remission since January 2023. And she is now a first year college student and living away like 3.5 hours away from home. And we are navigating all those things while she's still in remission. But she was anaphylactic to cashews and pistachios, and then a number of other sensitive, mostly nuts that we also treated through the program. And that's kind of a quick overview of um, where we are. And then I think I hear a echo, but um, okay, so today this is how you can get in touch with myself or Leslie Ann, and hopefully she's going to be joining us. Maybe she had some computer issues or something, but she should be joining us as soon as she's able to. But I will just keep going, and hopefully if she comes on, then we can have her introduce herself as well. So really quickly, some things about Halloween that we've done over the years. My kids are a lot older now, but this is when they were little itty bitties. And some things that we did, it kind of changed as they grew and changed into the different phases, depending on how old she was. But overall, for trick-or-treating, we always had the rule that there was no eating or of anything while she was actually trick-or-treating. And sometimes as she got older, I would give her a little safe bag of candy that if she wanted to eat from that while she was going trick-or-treating, she could. But when she was younger, it was just easier to kind of say, hey, there's just no eating at all while we're trick-or-treating. And then my husband or I would always walk around with the group that she was with. We oftentimes had a Halloween party at my sister's house. Their subdivision does these ginormous Halloween celebrations. And so it was really easy. There was always a lot of people, but it was usually pretty easy for us to kind of make sure she was in a safe environment. And of course, we would go through all the candy before she ate anything that she would bring back. And as she got older, she would do that with me. But when she was younger, I used to make a lot of phone calls to companies to try to make sure they were going to be safe for her because, as some people may know, just because a big bag of that candy is safe doesn't mean that the little bags are processed at the same place. And so oftentimes I would have to check their website or I would have to call the companies in order to see if she could eat it. And we always just had a rule that if I wasn't positive that it was safe for her, she just couldn't have it, which is never what you want to do. And that's why I always called the companies because I always wanted to say yes, she could have it, but sometimes it just didn't work out. And then at school, it would kind of be different. So as when she was in elementary school, we kind of had a rule that everything at the party was going to be safe for her. And I would always work with the teacher ahead of time to know what they were going to be doing for arts and crafts and to know what food they were going to be offering during the party. And I would always make sure that all of that food was going to be safe for her before that party happened. So just like as in the TIP program, you always just have to organize and make sure that you're doing all that planning ahead of time so that you know that everything is going to be okay once the party actually happens. And then as she got older and into middle school, she was more comfortable with not having everything be safe for her at the party. So we kind of let that go a little bit. And I would always know ahead of time with the teachers too what they were going to be offering, but I wasn't as strict about if someone else brought something in, then she would just not have that part. But she always knew ahead of time what would be safe for her and what wouldn't be safe for her. So that it was, she didn't like to be caught off guard with those things. And so as long as she knew ahead of time, she was fine if there was certain things she couldn't have. But again, just like everything else with food allergies, it really depends on your child, and what worked for my family to kind of navigate Halloween may or may not work for your family, but at least it'll give you some ideas of things to think about and how to still be able to do activities, but also keep your child safe. My daughter and I had a rule all the time that you always have a choice if we attend an event or not. And you may have to attend the event, but bring your own food and not share food and not be able to eat the food that everyone else did. But you still have a choice. Would you rather go and, do what you need to do in order to keep yourself safe and still be able to attend the event? Or would you rather choose to just not go to the event and then you're not kind of put in that situation? And she almost always would choose to still go, even if she had to do things a little differently. So, but again, those are all things that we always had that constant communication and talk between her and I to know, what are you comfortable with? And especially once she got to middle school, she was always in those meetings with the teachers and with myself as well, because it doesn't matter what I'm comfortable with, it's what she's comfortable with. Although, yes, obviously we have to also know that she's safe. But as they get older, you have a little bit more flexibility to see like what matters to you. It didn't matter anymore that she had everything safe in middle school at the party. So we let that go. So those are just some kind of things to kind of get your minds brainstorming about what you can do before parties or also before school events or also just trick or treating. Perfect.
Hi, everyone. I'm sorry I'm late to the call. My name is Leslie Ann Stone, and my son Sam was in the Food Allergy Institute with the Tolerance Induction Program for a little over 2 years. We've been in remission for 6 years. And as you can see, he was a toddler in the program. So this is him on Halloween when he was in the program. Even before the program, he was ages 3, 4, and 5 when he was in the program. Here are some pictures of him. He's now 11, so to see these pictures is so sweet for me. um, the one where he's the Ghostbuster, that was the first time he actually went to a Halloween party. That was in kindergarten, and he was free to eat all the food. So that was a huge moment for us. It was right after we graduated the program. So it was huge that he could participate. And I remember there was like every candy. We go to a public school, and we actually moved to a new neighborhood as we were graduating, so nobody knew us as food allergy parents or a food allergy family like at all, which was so different from preschool. So it was wild to like walk into the room and he could eat whatever he wanted. I mean, some of the first candy he's ever tried was at that party. So that picture gets me every time I look at it. Halloween before the program and during the program was tough. We take Halloween very seriously in my household. I am a theater kid. We love it. I dress up. My husband dressed up. We act in character. It's a whole thing with trick or treating. So when Sam was diagnosed as a baby with life-threatening food allergies, and this was Halloween was a tough one emotionally. And because Sam was so young, he didn't know any better, but we would go trick-or-treating. We went to a friend's house that in our old neighborhood that we really trusted, and we had a safe dinner beforehand. Everybody ate the same food, it was people that we really trusted, so everything was very safe there. So he loaded it up before trick-or-treating. And then when we went trick-or-treating, we had safe candy with us, and it was when somebody would put something into his bucket, his little pumpkin bucket, we would just go in and take it out and then put in the Starburst or the Skittles or whatever the safe food was that we had. And then we gave the candy to the friend that we were with, but it was just like not an issue, like at all. Honestly, it was more of an issue for me and just panicking about it, because there was a lot of emotion around it and fear. Like anytime I saw a rapper on the sidewalk, I was like, ah! But it's you all get it. You're food allergy moms, you or dads. I'm sorry, I didn't see who's on the call. Parents. Yeah, but if anyone has any specific questions about what we did, but now, I mean, I'll tell you, 6 years out, it's not even an issue. It's wild to think about it. We are so on the other end of this, and you will be too. You will be too. How'd I do, Isatow? Okay.
Okay, and then the last slide that we have here is just some other resources that we're going to also leave up during the question and answer session next. But I just want to kind of talk. So some of the things that we've learned about over the years is the Halloween witch or the switch witch. I never did this with my daughter, but it's also because I didn't really learn about it till she was older, and by then we kind of already had our thing down. But it is a good idea. I think for some families, again, just helping to kind of brainstorm to see maybe this will work for your family, maybe it won't. So after they get to go trick or treating, and then that night they can leave all the candy on your table or somewhere in your home. And then that night, while the child is sleeping, the switch witch comes and takes all the candy and leaves something else. So whether that's safe candy they leave or some non-food present or something, it just depends kind of how you want to celebrate it and what makes sense for your family. But that's a good idea that I know some families have used over the years. Also, there is a link for Snack Safely, and ISA 2 will send out the slides later, and you'll actually be able to click on the link. I know you can't click on it now because you're just viewing it, but that is a great resource, which would prevent you from having to call all the companies like I used to have to way back in the day. But this is something that's really helpful. You can look on their website and you can filter things by what the allergens are, and you will receive like a file to download of common snacks and candies and things like that that would be safe for your child to eat with those. Obviously, always double check, but it's a really good start. And then the Teal Pumpkin Project, for those that aren't aware of that, that started many years ago. Again, my daughter was kind of older at that time when I first learned about it, but there is a map that you can look up to see if there's any houses that are participating in that in your area. It doesn't mean that there still won't be some. They might not know that they can put their address on a map so you know. But what that means is that they'll put a teal pumpkin outside of their home, and teal is the color for food allergies. And so it means that they have either non-food items or foods that are free from most of the allergies that would be something that your child would be able to come up to the door and ask for. So those are just some resources to help you as you navigate this Halloween. Take them, kind of see what works for your family and what doesn't. And then we also have our email addresses on here if you want to email us directly, or again, you can feel free to ask questions, as well. But Leslie Ann, do you have anything else to add to the resources at all?
I do not.
Okay. Okay. Well, that concludes our, go ahead, Isa, too.
I was going to say that concludes the presentation. It was meant to be short this time around. That way we can focus the majority of the hour on Q&As. So if you have any questions, I saw some in the chat. I think we can move forward with those.
Perfect. So I will start going with the questions that are in the chat, and Leslie Ann and I can answer them. And also feel free to unmute yourself and also ask questions too. This is really just to help you all in, any questions that you have. So feel free to interject if you need. So first question is, who can I email with a question about my food dosing strategy? And my response to that would be Tip Connect. So Tip Connect is a great resource that you can go on and you can log in and be able to send a message directly to the providers. I just did this like the other week trying to set up remission visit for us. And I had a question for the provider and I heard back within a couple hours. So my and I don't know if you I don't have the Tip Connect website offhand, but I don't know if ISA 2 has that that we could maybe put in the chat so that you know what the website is that you can go ahead and send an email to them and they will respond with your answers for that.
Yep, right before I send these, I'll go ahead and I'll update it. So you'll also have access to that. You have the link.
Okay, perfect. Okay, the next question that we have is, we will be starting soon and have our first appointment next month. What is something you wish you knew when you started that would have been helpful? Leslie Ann and I can answer. I don't know if you want to go first, Leslie Ann.
Yeah, it's a marathon, it's not a race. And you should just be really patient with yourself. It's going to be a shock to the system in so many ways. How old is your child? Can we find out that person? Do we know how old that kid is? No. Okay.
The question is from Patricia. I don't know if she feels comfortable unmuting herself to
Yes.
answer.
Sorry, I had to find the button.
Oh, no problems.
He is actually about to be 12.
Okay, cool.
So he has a bunch of anaphylactic food allergies and just heard about the Food Allergy Institute. So we're jumping in.
Where are you from?
We're from Texas, from Dallas area.
Okay, well, first, congratulations.
Thanks.
And there are going to be very difficult days getting your child to eat what the child needs to eat.
Okay. And so I've seen that. Like I've seen that kind of around people saying that. And I mean, just in that there's mild reactions in that he just might not want to do it, or
he's not going to want to do it.
He's over it.
There are just some days the kid is just not going to want to do it for whatever reason, boundary pushing, or they don't want to do it, or they're tired, or because it's Monday. You know what I mean?
Right.
The sky is blue. But just stick with it. You're not alone. There is such a community out there, out there now, that wasn't there when I started, and
right.
And the light at the end of the tunnel is so very. Just do.
I cry when I think about it, honestly.
Do exactly as you're told.
Okay.
Exactly as you're told, and don't question it.
Okay.
Don't get kooky. You know what I mean? These people, they know the way of the wind. Just surrender is my.
Okay.
Because that's what I did.
Yeah.
And there were times early on that it was like a shock to the system. And because it's so different from what I was told from the years before. And I did every single thing they told me to do. And we never had a problem. Not one problem. No reaction, nothing.
That's wild to me. Wild.
Yep.
Yeah. And I guess I would just also add I definitely feel the same way that Leslie Ann does, as far as like, just take it one step at a time. And, you will get there, but it is a process. It will be overwhelming. There will be times you're like, oh my gosh, what am I doing? I have so much food prep to do and all these things. And there will be times like that. But there will also be times on the other side that you're like, oh my gosh, my child is eating cashews. Oh my gosh, I can't believe this. So take it with a grain of salt. Know that there'll be hard days. There will be better days. And also, I am a huge believer in organization. So for me, what helped me the most on those days was having a chart, having like the food prepped so that I could do what I needed to do in order to make the days better. And I would kind of prep the dosing when I had to do that ahead of time. And when you come back from your appointments, you'll have a dosing strategy. And that was like gold to me. I mean, I sat down with my computer with my dosing strategy and I made a calendar for the next cycle. And that was just a way for me to organize it so that I felt like I knew what I needed to do on what day. And it made all the difference for me. So I would definitely agree with Leslie Ann, and also add, for me, I'm glad that I kind of organized everything, and that made me know what I needed to do every day.
That's super helpful. Thank you.
Yeah, of course. No problem. Another question is, how was it to watch your child eat foods that he has been avoiding all of his life? And do kids experience reactions? So I will answer part of that right. So my daughter, we avoided food for her for over 10 years because she was 4 when she had her first reaction. We didn't start the program till she was 15. So in that regard, I think Leslie Ann and my experience is different. I was used to avoiding it for so long. And I feel like my husband joked with me when we first started, and he said, when this is all done, are you really going to let her eat cashews and pistachios? And I said, I don't really know. I don't know how it's going to be. I would like to think yes. And it is scary. And there were times when I remember thinking, like, just don't overthink it. Don't think it. Like when it's gummies, I felt like it was easier to just be like, oh, she's just eating gummies. I mean, you can see the little specks in there, but I kind of forced myself not to think about it. And even still, I mean, she's been in remission for a year and a half, over a year and a half. And even now I'm still like, don't think that she's eating cashews or pistachios because it's hard to retrain your brain that way. But yes, I trust the program and I would just keep telling myself, I trust what we did. I trust the science behind it all. It will be fine. And so that's kind of yes. But the short answer is yes. It is hard to do that and to watch them eat something you've watched them eat before and have had a severe reaction and had to go to the ER over. So, yes.
It
I
was
don't know if
different.
Leslie in.
It
Yeah.
was different for me. I was actually really excited because they're not going to let you just start eating nuts. You know what I mean? And they give you a little bit, they give you more than what you would dose at home in the office. So you were actually the first time for us, the heavy was, I call it the heavy, the most allergic nuts was walnut and peanut. And like once we transferred over into some of the heavy ones with tree nuts and then building up to walnut and then peanut, it was like with each nut you do, you're like, I want to get there, I want to get there. And by the time we got to peanut, I remember the first time Sam ate a whole peanut, a rainbow came out in the window outside. It like the same time it was raining and the clouds and a rainbow. Like I was like, wow, this is something. So it was really exciting. It was really exciting. And it's surreal. I would say it's surreal, it's exciting, it's a relief. There were a couple times I cried, just the release of getting there and all the hard work we did. A lot of crying, a lot of hugging random people in the office.
Um,
Yeah.
and and then also part of that question was if kids experience reactions, and I can only speak to my experience. And my daughter had one very minor reaction way in the beginning. And again, I have told this story before to people I've talked to on the phone, and maybe even in a different office hours, but she was way in the beginning. She ate her dose. She had a stomach ache, and it was kind of like really bugging her. And so I called the clinic. I was on the phone with one of the providers within a minute, and I felt so supported. I live in Wisconsin. The providers are in California. And I was like, how is this going to work? And they talked me through what I needed to do, what medications I needed to give her out of the scenario kit that they had gone over with me at my appointment. And although I knew what I should be giving her, it was just nice to have that person say, okay, now I need you to give her the Pepcid AC. And now what happens? And we just kind of stayed on the phone for a while and her stomach ache got less. And they kind of said, okay, I'm going to call you back in 30 minutes and we'll see where she's at. And I was like, okay, sure. I'm going to hear back from you in 30 minutes. And sure enough, like 30 minutes later, my phone rings. It's the provider and they're checking in to see how she's doing. And I said, she seems like she's totally fine now. So then we talked about, well, what are we going to do differently tomorrow? And what are we going to change with the dosing? And they walked me through all of it. And it was scary. And of course, I mean, we had recently started the program. And as a mom, you're thinking, what have I done? I'm giving my child these things. And now she's having these reactions. We've avoided having reactions for 10 plus years. And so again, of course, outwardly to my child, I'm like, oh, things are fine. I'm talking to the provider. But inwardly, I'm going, oh my gosh, what have I done? But later when we were processing it, we were able to talk about it and say, listen, like you had a stomach ache. You didn't need an EpiPen. You weren't an anaphylactic. Like it was probably the best thing that ever happened during the program for us because we felt supported and we felt like I knew what to do next. And she was fine. And once you can sit and reflect on it, I was like, okay, it was a stomach ache. That was all it was. And we were on the phone with the providers and I just felt very supported. And so I like to share that story because yes, it was a minor reaction. And yet I didn't know how it would really be. You know, you can read like this is how you get in touch with the providers but it did actually work for us. So that's my answer to the reaction question.
We had no reaction at all and continue to have no reaction.
And I also will add that that was it. And she's had no other problems. And again, without getting into all the details, like we were able to talk about things with the provider and figure out why we think that happened and live and learn. And we did things differently after that. So the tip for us was she couldn't dose on an empty stomach. So we did not do that anymore after that. Another question is, do you have any tips for patients that are nearing remission? How is the transition for your kids to be able to go from such strict reactions to eating freely? My daughter has a lot of anxiety, and I would love some suggestions for that transition.
Is she in the program?
It says that they are nearing remission. So yes,
Congratulations.
they are almost done.
Do you want to take that first, Beth, or do you want me to take it?
It doesn't matter either way.
Okay, so I am a big, in terms of anxiety and relations to food, I am a big advocate for therapy, or coaching, having coaching to work that out. Especially now as you've been through the program, you've probably been through the program for quite some time. And if there's still anxiety around that, I had to go to therapy as a parent in the program. My son didn't, but I realized I was causing me so much anxiety around it. So what was it? What were my issues with it? And not to go into too much detail, there were some adjustments that I had to make. That was me and my story. And I've met through the program and through the years, there are people out there that specifically do child life coaching for kids in the program. And that's, I'm happy to put in, recommendation for the people out. They are not associated with the Food Allergy Institute. It's just people, they've received clients through the years who happen. They do work virtually too. So that's the first thing in terms of it. My son, his palate is still changing. So he was always a picky eater, like before the program, and he continues to be. So a lot of it is the palate changing too, being picky, but I'm very much, because of the work I've had to do on myself and the anxiety around him eating whatever he was eating, and control, was I'm very much open that he can eat, really, if he doesn't want to eat something, aside from maintenance foods and foods that he has to eat for the program, he's very free. So if he wants to have pasta every night for 5 days in a row, then he eats pasta every night. I have a friend who was a nutritionist who I talked to about this too, because he was so picky that I was like, I'm scared he's going to grow up and just eat, he's only going to eat spaghetti for the rest of his life. And she's like, that's not going to happen. And now I see, as he's 11 and a half, like he had interest recently in sushi. I was like, oh, like it's just like he had interest in Kung Pao chicken the other night. I was like, okay. And I just don't make a big deal out of it when he wants to eat something new. Like, I'm not like, oh my God, it's a new food and it has a peanut in it. I'm like, have a bite. Great that you like it. We can order this again next time. Like, I'm trying, that's how I'm trying not to highlight it so much. I'm rambling. I probably overshared too much information about me.
No, that's okay. So with the question, I would say for my daughter, so she was 17 when she finished the program. I'm not sure how old your child is, but she actually, I just kind of went how she was feeling. And I brought up to her a couple times, if you need, like, I know where we are locally that there is a psychologist, a therapist that specializes in food allergies. And while she may not know much about the program, she knows about food allergies. And so I always brought it up to her to kind of say, hey, if you need therapy, like just let me know and we will look into it and try to navigate that as well. I mean, as food allergy parents, we're used to navigating a whole bunch of stuff and we figure it out somehow. And so for her, she was actually transitioned fine. It was, I think, as you kind of go through the program, you get little wins, right? Where like, oh, we can go be cross contact okay now. And so I was surprised. Like she totally just like flipped a switch and she was fine. And she just was able to go eat whatever she wanted. And she didn't really have any anxiety over it. Again, I'm sure some other kids may, but that's when I would, offer advice to reach out to like a therapist or a pediatrician or someone at the clinic to see if there's any other resources that they can give you to help your child kind of transition to remission. Another question is for someone out of state, where can we access food allergy accommodation letters for the need to submit to college student disability services? Are the letters generic or specific to the child? And if not readily available, how and who can I request this form if we need something now or at our next appointment? So I would also suggest that Tip Connect, there is a form on there that you can request, like it'll tell you, like you pick what topic you have, and you can request letters through there, I would think. I'm not sure, Isa, too, if you have more information about that, but that would be my suggestion is Tip Connect.
Yeah, it would be on Tip Connect, and if you have a special form, you can attach that as well. And then once provider sees it, they'll help fill it out.
3 to 5 days.
3 to 5 days.
Business days.
Perfect.
And then also, I think I had Brunel Sinu, who had her hand raised.
Oh, yes, thank you. I see that now.
Yes, hi ladies. My name is Brunel. This is my first time joining. My son is 7 years old, and we've been to the food allergy clinic twice. So we started in the spring. Thank you so much for this discussion. I had 2 questions that both Beth and Leslie have addressed. And that was related to some anxiety. So my son has an overall, you guys are food allergy parents. My son has an overall IgE of over 4,000. And so you pick a food and he's like, their anaphylaxis, apple, oranges, like anything, he's going to have an anaphylactic response to. So needless to say, we've treated him like a bubble baby prior to joining the program. And so it's been avoidance, avoidance, avoidance. And even the trip to California back and forth is pretty scary experiences, particularly in the airplane. And I've thought about, I don't know, like advocating about more allergy consciousness on those airlines. But now that I've moved out here, I've moved from Miami to Alabama, and I want him to socialize more. He's 7. He has a 3-year-old, 4-year-old brother. I am a single mom. And so when you're accommodating that 7-year-old, it tends to take away social experiences for that 3 and 4-year-old. But he is very anxious around food. And we are getting ready to participate in a Halloween festival coming up in a few weeks. And I don't want him to be fearful. He'll cry. He'll start throwing up. We don't know if it's behavioral. I took down some of the notes, Leslie, about the life coaching for the children. And I just want to know, A, how can I advocate for him? Beth, as you spoke about how you prepared with your teachers in the schools for your child. At parties, it's like for me, because I was avoiding, I thought it was something, the onus was on me. But I'm realizing now that I can advocate for him so that he can participate in these things. And then also how to deal with my anxiety as well as his anxiety. At the clinic, the first day, they tried to feed him 3 things, and I cried. I said, how is it this child that doctors couldn't figure out what to feed him for 7 years, challenge him to, you guys are feeding him for 3 days, and parents on the line, he did exceptionally well. It was to pumpkin seeds, millet flour, and coconut milk. I know that doesn't sound exciting, but for a child that you can't feed anything to, I felt like it was a win. So I'm looking forward to any advice that you ladies would have for me. Thank you.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for sharing. It's a lot, right? And we all know that, right? So my daughter is my oldest. I have 3 children younger than her as well. And I definitely agree that when one has that food allergy, she is the only one of my kids that has a food allergy. And, growing up, their life was different. We did avoid going to certain places because I didn't feel like it was safe for my oldest to be able to come with us. So I definitely understand how that feels as a parent. And I think, these baby steps that you're doing, going to the clinic, and, we can definitely talk about ways to keep safe on airplanes. And I mean, yeah, that's a whole nother topic, right? But I also think that the anxiety that your child has, that you have, I mean, I've been there, right? We've all been there. And I think like Leslie Ann also spoke to with the therapy, that that's always an option to try to help you manage what's going on with you, because it's a lot to have that pressure on you to keep your child safe. I had a family member recently come up to me bawling, so upset, crying because her child has a food allergy and they had a reaction. And she's like, I gave that food to my child. Like, how could I have done that? And I think it's so easy for us to to think about all those things. But I think it's also so important to realize that, we're doing the best we can in the moment that we have. And I feel like, reaching out to a therapist to try to help manage the anxiety, whether it's for you or for your child, is something that can definitely help. I think, Leslie Ann, do you have stuff to add as well?
So I do think some therapy or coaching could help both of you in a big way. In a big way, because there's a lot of trauma. Look, I'm not a mental health therapist. I'm not a coach. I'm a marketer. So I am not a mental health professional at all. I'm just talking from my experience and what's worked for me. So, I suggest that. I'd also look into Facebook groups. Is there a food allergy support group locally in your area? There was one in my area even before the program, and I joined it. There was some good and bad, right? Like, the good to it is I dealt with the moms who were in a similar situation. They had great tips. The bad part is some of them were so fearful and so, like, to such an extreme. You have to kind of, like, pick like a menu, pick and choose what you want out of the experience and try to cancel out the noise. I'm in LA and my entire family is on the East Coast, so we would have to fly cross country to see them, and it was extremely stressful. So I understand the airplane thing. I, like, once made an entire airplane of people not eat. Like, don't ask. That's the whole story. Anyway, like, I shut it down, like, and it was a meltdown, and it was like a whole thing. Anyway, so I get you. But I would look for a support group or start one. Go on Facebook and start your own, where you're like food allergy moms in your area, and see who joins and go from there. I mean, the truth is, at the end of the day, you just need one person to talk with and to hang with, right? And start small instead of having a whole group of people with play dates. Maybe it's one or two people who, with another food allergy kid who gets it. Like, we had these friends, they weren't who we went trick-or-treating with. They didn't have food allergy kids, but they were very, very, very sympathetic to our situation, and everything was always safe. So, and then Sam looked at that household as being a safe household. Like, I felt safe there. They felt safe there. So it just takes one, right? And then it continues to grow and grow and grow. But stick with the program. It's so special. I'm excited for you. I'm excited for you.
Yeah, and I think also you mentioned about the advocacy at school. I mean, gosh, when my daughter was in kindergarten, she was the first child at her school that had a anaphylactic allergy. So oh gosh, I mean, the amount of work I did with that school to help get them up to speed with where I needed them to be in order for me to feel safe sending my child there. Um, it's a lot, but yes, I wholeheartedly agree working with the school district to help advocate so that your child can be as much a part of the activities and the things that go on there as you and your child want to be. Right. There was some times that, my daughter, like it was me that wanted my daughter to feel included. And she was like, Mom, it's fine. It doesn't bother me. I'm like, oh, okay. So let's talk about that a little bit, because I think we kind of put ourselves into their position and how would they feel? I think the first week of school, she was at a peanut tree nut free table by herself eating lunch every day. And I didn't know that nobody else was eating with her. And the teacher told me, and I was like, oh my gosh. And I talked to her about it. She's like, Mom, it was fine. It was fine. It was quiet. I liked it. And I was like, okay. So, again, I think also keeping that communication open as your child is growing and, trying to navigate things as well. But I think, you know, we're always huge advocates for sure. So,
Thank you so much.
yeah, of course. Another question was that someone just started the program. They had their first food challenge appointment last week, and she is confused about who is overseeing the daughter's care over the 4 years they're estimating it will take to go through the program. Is it one attending doctor? Is it a team? We asked at our appointment who our daughter's doctor was so we could connect them with our pediatrician, and they were told they weren't sure. Can you provide some clarity on the process of how the program works? Any advice on how to coordinate this program with your pediatrician? So I can tell you from, and again, things change, but when we were in the program, we had different pods that were set up. We were in the Long Beach clinic. when we first started, there was no other clinic. It was all Long Beach. I'm sure Leslie Ann was the same because she's been out longer than we have. And it really was I mean, we didn't always see the same provider. There was a couple of providers that we were more likely to see when we were there because they were within our pod, but it always was not the same provider. And when you contact the clinic through Tip Connect, there's probably like a provider on call or someone assigned to respond to those for that day. And so it wasn't always the same provider. And I guess, everyone kind of feels differently about that maybe, but for us, I never had a problem with it. We definitely had our more favorite providers that we tried to, get our next appointment with. And sometimes it worked out and sometimes it didn't. But everyone overall was really helpful for us as we moved through the program. And as far as my pediatrician goes, we didn't, he knew that we were doing this program, but I didn't really see a need that I needed him to talk with anybody at the clinic. So I don't know if Leslie Ann has any other advice about that. And Lindsay, I see the questions from Lindsay. If you want to give a little bit more specifics on what you're hoping the program would give to your pediatrician, maybe that can help us too.
I mean, we we saw Dr. Randalla himself. So it was so long ago. It was just a patient room and a receptionist. So it was
That's great.
very different. And our pediatrician has never spoken to anyone at the Food Allergy Institute, including Dr. Randalla. Never needed to happen.
Okay. Another question is I had my launch visit 2 months ago and we'll have the first appointment next week. I got a schedule of food my son will be treating with every visit. I'm just trying to have a better understanding on how it's been dosing those allergic foods and if you have experienced anaphylactic reactions during the treatment, if there is any tips to avoid severe reactions. And I think we both have already shared that our kids did not have any severe reactions in the program. My biggest tips would be to listen to what they tell you to do and follow the instructions. I know some people like the recommended foods. I know some people don't always follow the 3 to 5 days a week for the recommended foods, and they maybe are a little more lax with those. And I always made sure that, and I'm not going to say we were 100% compliant with everything, but we were pretty darn close. I always made sure that she ate what she needed to eat because I always felt like if they're telling me these are recommended foods, she should eat them because they're doing something. They wouldn't tell me otherwise. And so for us, I think one of the reasons that we did well in the program is that we followed everything as much as we could, as detailed as we could. I'm trying to think if there's anything else. Leslie Ann, do you have anything else?
I followed every single thing they said. We were compliant 100%. And we never had a problem.
Yeah. My 26-month-old will have a second appointment, the launch appointment, early in January. He usually has dinner at 6:45 and is in bed by 8:30. How was your routine while doing the evening dose? So my daughter obviously was older, but I think it all, for us, it was something that we planned into every day because my daughter was super busy with after school activities, dance 4+ days a week after school. So we would literally every day know when we would be able to do her dosing so that she was done with her rest period in plenty of time. But obviously that's a little different with the younger one because half the times she would go to bed after I do because that's how it is with teenagers. But Leslie Ann could probably give more information about a younger child in the program and how they kind of did that. But we usually did our dosing around dinner time or give or take, depending on when we could fit it in with in between her activities.
No, we did. We just put it as a routine because toddlers need routines so badly that it just became part of a routine. And the afternoon it was late afternoon dosings for us, and it wasn't even an issue at all. We just built it in when he was home, and it just wasn't an issue. It's funny though. The breakfast was harder for us to get out the door on time. That was tough. But no, we just made it part of the routine. Routine.
Yes, and I know that, she had said that they eat dinner at 6:45, but you don't have to wait till that time to do your treatment food either. It just has to be 4 hours different from your maintenance food. Like it sounds like Leslie Ann did it more like at 3, 4 or something like that. Like that, that works too. You just kind of make it into your routine and then it's easier to follow.
Because when he came from preschool, we would do it. Yeah, it wasn't an issue.
Another question is my son, who is 8, is a very picky eater and we are getting close to remission. I am worried about the transition and getting him to eat other foods. I think, I remember when my daughter was, well, when all 4 of my kids were little, they always kind of said, you can't just feed them a food once. You have to like continually feed them a food because they might, even though they may like not like a food in the beginning, doesn't mean that they won't like it later. And I think this is the same thing. When it's different, my child was older. She was excited to be able to try other foods. And we did make a big deal about certain things. Like, oh my gosh, do you realize that you wouldn't have been able to eat that before? Just so that they can see how far they've come too, because they've done a lot of work, just like we've done a lot of work to get them to this point. And I think that's really important to get them excited about trying the new foods that they weren't able to try before. And we never really had a problem with that. I mean, she was always willing to try any food that she could have. But I don't know if your son is any pickier, Leslie Ann.
I have the exact opposite story. So I never made a big deal of it because it was like, I remember we went to CVS, like you can have any candy bar you want, pick out whatever you want from the candy aisle. And it was so overwhelming that he just went for the same bar that he would eat when it was safe. And you know what? In time, he took the Reese's peanut butter cup, and in time he took the other foods and he eats it now. But for me to say to him, this is so special. Now you can eat this. Oh my God, you have to try this. You have to try. He naturally doesn't want it. He's like, I don't, stop pushing that down my throat, So it was all out there. And if he wanted it, I would never say no. And if he didn't want it, I would never push it for him. So for me, it was the exact opposite was my approach, because I never wanted to highlight it. So he does try on his own. He has grown in, like I said, the sushi and the kung pao. He's come into it on his own. I don't put the pressure on that.
And I think that's a perfect example of how everyone is so different. And, with my daughter, I knew that she wasn't having anxiety or anything over foods. And for us, it was exciting to celebrate those little kind of milestones that we were able to hit. But for sure, everyone is different and you kind of know what works.
It wasn't anxiety around the food. It was boundaries.
Sure.
For us, I want to be very clear. It wasn't anxiety around the food. It was boundaries, because they're all essentially, they're all little teenagers. They're all trying to, it wasn't necessarily about the anxiety. It was the boundaries,
Sure.
Yeah. And we eat family style in our house. That was another thing my nutritionist friend told me. I used to be like, this is my serving, this is your serving, and like serve. And now I put anything I make, what would you take out? Whatever it is, we put it all on the table and we can all share family style. So it's not, it feels much more communal, and it's an opportunity that if he wanted to pick at something, and I have another son who has no food allergies, a younger, 3 years younger, him too. We're deep in the pasta phase with him now. We're back in the buttered pasta. But if one day he's gonna want to try the chicken, one day, it's the same thing. It's the same for us. It's the same thing.
Another question is anyone with experience with older kids doing the program? And my daughter was 15 when she started and was 17 when she finished. So we definitely have different experiences with older kids versus younger kids in the program. And, it just depends on what age the child is. I don't know if there was other follow-up questions, but yes, I had older kids in the program. Do you have any tips for getting picky eaters to eat maintenance or treatment foods? We have a toddler who is about to launch for tree nuts, dairy, and sesame. Um, Even my older child, and she even knew why she was eating all the foods. There was times that you're just tired of eating the foods, right? You just want to break. Like her breakfast every day was her maintenance foods. And she was like, Mom, I just want a different breakfast some days. And I'm like, I know, but we're getting there. And so for us, we just kept switching things up for treatment and for maintenance foods, whatever, and obviously she was older, so I could ask her, let's try it in this way and let's make a muffin. And, so it was a little different than with a younger kid because we could still change things up, but she could give me more feedback about what she liked and what she didn't like about it. Whereas a younger kid, I don't think that works as well. But Leslie, go
I've
ahead.
been waiting for this in the chat because I can see the questions rolling in. I've been waiting for this question. So we had a really hard time getting Sam to eat his foods. Really hard time. So I'm gonna tell you what I did, and this ain't gonna be popular opinion, but I paired it with whatever he would want to eat. So you know what? For weeks on a time, he had breakfast and it was frosting. And I mashed up all the nuts he had to eat and I put it into Duncan Hines frosting because that was safe and didn't have any contamination with his other allergens. And he ate frosting, a bowl of frosting every day, and we got out the door on time. And I was very freaked out that he was going to have some kind of health crisis and he would eat frosting when he was a teenager and nobody would want to date him. And and it is not the case. It is not the case at all. And he still eats frosting when he wants it on a cake. He doesn't ask for frosting for breakfast, but it was whatever it took to get it down the hatch without a fight and without anxiety. Because that was another thing was I didn't want to have a meltdown and a fight and hysteria every morning because it started to become a pattern, right? Where it was like, even before breakfast, there was a little bit of a frenzy in the kitchen. And I'm like, we're stopping this. So what was that thing? So my advice to you is, what is that thing that your kid would eat that the kid really wants to eat? And you know what? Give it to the kid and just do it. And the kid will be okay. Look, I'm not a doctor, but that's what we did. And there was no issue. So that's number one. And then another thing we had to do with the toddler. So the toddler is all about control, right? The toddler wants to feel control, they're like little teenagers, right? So, okay, just go with me. This is really kooky. So you have to come up with systems, right? For what to get your kid to eat. And I was really big in not wanting to give rewards that were food. So I started to think of what was a reward that's not food related. So let's do something on a smaller scale. If you eat this food on the way to preschool, Lego Batman was the movie at the time. We're going to drive by the Lego Batman billboard. We'll take the other route that goes by the billboard because he used to love the billboard. Like things like that you don't think is a reward, but for a toddler, it's a huge reward. And like that worked for a period of time, like non-food rewards. But you have to really think about it. Then the other thing was, I said, okay, we hit another wall. So what's the next thing? We did the icing with the Lego Batman. So I said, okay, I have a job. Dad has a job. This is your job. The tolerance induction program is your job. So one day he comes home from preschool and there's a package for him in a FedEx box. Okay. And he opens it up and there's this colorful binder. And inside the binder, I had stickers in the inside pocket with all he liked Paw Patrol at the time and he liked Star Wars at the time. So it was all these stickers. And then there was like a pencil thing in the binder that looked really cool. And there's like stickers and stuff in there too. And then there was a chart and there was a picture of every food he had to eat, like every nut. And we had milk too and egg. So like on one side and the other side was the days of the week. And every time he finished eating, he got to choose whatever sticker he wanted and he put it on the rewards chart until the rewards chart was filled. And I timed it for our next appointment. And then when he went to the next appointment, the doctor signed off on it. I said, this is your job. And the FedEx package came from the Food Allergy Institute. It did not come from mom or dad. This came in the mail for you for your job. And he had a lot of ownership over it. Like that really was a game changer, that there was something that was not related to mom or dad. It was from somebody else. It was like this perceived thing. So that went on for months, this job. And then when my friends would come over, they would say, like, show me your work. And he would go and get his binder and he'd look at my stickers and look at all that stuff. And I would change up the stickers. And we rode that wave for a really long time. Really long time. I used to pretend that I would call the doctor. Oh my gosh, you finished your breakfast. We're on our way out. Let me just make sure they know. And it's Leslie Ann's performance of calling the Food Allergy Institute and just, oh my God, he ate it. Just want to let you know. Okay, note in his file. Okay, I'll tell him to put it in his binder for work. Thanks. Like that worked for a while too.
Yeah, and I definitely think that it's always changing things up, right? Whether it's, other non-food related items, or it's also food related that you try it mixed in applesauce instead of yogurt or something like that, so that you're kind of always changing and adapting as you go through, for sure. Another question is, have your kids in remission ever had an allergic reaction after graduating the program? No. Leslie and Ann and I both, no, they have not. Yes. Are you able to travel internationally without any reaction issues? Yes, we've left the country a number of times, and we have some coming up in December that we will be going out of the country again. And yes, yes. We bring our maintenance foods with us. We still have our EpiPens, but yes, we sit at the restaurant in Costa Rica and I don't tell them anything. She eats whatever she wants. Yes.
I don't even think about it.
Yeah.
It's so crazy. I don't even think about it.
A follow-up about the pediatrician coordinating with the program from Lindsay, wondering about how to coordinate care in terms of when our child has colds and flus. And how to manage vaccine schedules. I always contacted the clinic with that stuff. I didn't have my pediatrician do it. I did it. So thankfully, my child, knock on wood, doesn't get sick a ton. And so we didn't really have many issues with that. But that was during COVID. So with the COVID vaccines, I did talk to the clinic about that. And she also needed some other vaccines as she was older too. And I always just talked to the clinic, or, did tip connect or talked with them at my appointment and said, listen, these are the vaccines that my pediatrician said that she needs to get. How do we work our dosing schedule around that? And so I always kind of took charge of that. I didn't have my pediatrician contact them.
Me too. But I'll tell you this, Lindsay. So we always thought he had like a preschool cough or something like that. It was his environmental allergies. We didn't even realize he had environmental allergies. He had 13. We didn't know. So he actually started getting healthier and stronger and really rarely sick, like within 6 weeks of starting the program on SLIT. It's wild. He still rarely gets sick. Rarely.
Yeah, but again, just to clarify too, with the rest of the question that you had, is that, you just need to contact the clinic and they will help you determine what you do with the colds or fevers and all that kind of stuff and what you need to change. And if you know of a vaccine coming up, they can tell you when it's okay to give them that vaccine and all that kind of stuff. Someone else is new to the program, started in July. Speaking of the recommended foods, do you know if it matters if we do 3 times versus 5 times? We are getting to the 3 times easily, but the 5 times has been much harder. I always just kind of said like 3 to 5 times, and pretty much every food we would schedule 4 times a week on her calendar that we had for her dosing, and except lentils because she hated them, and we did those 3. So they say 3 to 5 times. That would be a really good question to ask the provider at your next appointment. But we kind of usually did 4. And I'm sure there was some days or some weeks, I should say, that she had 5 just because she wanted to eat that food anyway. But because a lot of hers were like apple, and she honestly had an apple every day. So she would do 7 with that one, and like stone fruits, but we always made sure she at least did 4 for most of the foods, except the one we always just made sure she did 3. Some weeks she would still do it 4 times, but yeah, that would be a good question to ask your provider too. Does anyone have experience achieving remission with a dairy allergy? So my daughter does not. I don't know what Leslie Ann was. Did you deal with dairy by chance?
It was one of the lighter allergens, but yeah, we did. But it was one of the lighter earlier on. allergies that we tackled. So we did not have like the camel milk and the mare's milk, and we didn't do that.
Okay, I'm just reading the question to see. Yeah, so I'm not sure. Maybe ISA2 would have another volunteer that
Yes,
does more dairy that you can hook up Therese Garcia.
I do. If you're interested in mentorship, I could pair you up with one of our volunteers.
Yeah, and I think you would have that someone who dealt with dairy would be perfect for
Yeah.
to answer those questions for you for sure.
Hi, this is Therese, and I would love that. Please do share. I can just like I can put my email on my question if that's helpful.
No, it's okay. I have it already, so I'll go ahead and I'll pair you right after this call.
Okay, awesome. Thank you so much.
Thank you.
Perfect. What is the most amount of maintenance foods, the number of different foods that you had to do?
Gosh,
Hmm.
I remember a lot.
Yes. I don't remember the actual number, but I would definitely say she was probably around 10 to 12. I don't know. That's a hard question.
I don't
Maybe it was even
remember
more than that.
a lot. It was a lot. I don't remember, but I remember after remission, that was you all talk about getting used to things. That was the flip side of like being like, wait, I'm not coming anymore, and I don't
Right.
48 foods a week, like that. It was like the flip side. Yeah. And now like even more than ever, because it really knocks down. Like when you're like 5 years out, 6 years out, it dramatically gets knocked down. That's the change.
Yes, for sure. Let's see. So yes, I definitely know that there are people that get a decent number of maintenance foods, but I don't know the exact number that we were at, but it was quite a bit until we had our next blood work, and then that was able to be decreased again. So I know that we are over 6 o'clock here. And we still have quite a bit of questions here in the chat. Um, I will try to look through any of them to see if they're different than what we've kind of been talking about. Um, so ghee, someone asked about ghee. I did not do any maintenance food for ghee. I'm not sure, Leslie Ann, if you have either. That might be another one that maybe ISA2 could hook them up with somebody that can talk about that with them. So the names of the TIP Facebook groups, there are parent ones. And I know that we had that on a previous office hours ISA2, that maybe we can, are you going to send out that email again at the end? That
I
maybe,
am.
okay, perfect. So maybe, I don't know, do you still have the
That
Facebook
email that I
name?
sent out, I should still have it. And then if I don't, I'll ask marketing to share that information with me and I'll forward it to you, Paul.
Perfect. So ISA2 will send out the email with the different Facebook groups that you can connect with. There's ones for travel, there's ones for in the program, and they're super helpful. Um, so someone's son has been in the program for 4.5 years and will go into remission in a year. He's in college across the country. Will he still need to do maintenance when he is in remission? So, will he still need to carry his scenario kit? So, really quickly, no, my daughter does not carry her scenario kit anymore. Yes, she still carries an EpiPen. Yes, you will still need to do maintenance foods. They vary, and as you get deeper into remission, that will change. But initially, when she first went into remission, she would have like her maintenance foods once a week. And now it's every other week. Some are still weekly, but most are every other week. And I sent her to college with a small bin full of her maintenance foods, and it'll last her all the way to Thanksgiving. And those are also one of those things that, like Leslie Ann is also talking about. Like you think about how much food did I used to go through, and now this one bin will last her all the way from September until Thanksgiving. So, yeah, that's all some things that, definitely come, but you
For
will
us,
still have to do some maintenance.
for us with the maintenance food, some things we don't, I mean, it's so like Sam loves Larabar. So like that's has enough. We were told that had enough for his cashew dosage. So like we don't even like some of his foods are so integrated into his life that it doesn't even feel like a chore anymore because it's just what he eats. And I was told that's when you've reached ultimate success in the program, where it's just like you don't even think about it anymore because it's just part of the kid's life. He's like he's just in it, eating his foods as part of it.
Another question about if anyone has heard of NeuroWaves allergy treatment and if that's something that you could do in combination with TIP. I have not heard of that. I don't know, Leslie Ann, have you heard of that?
But it sounds exciting. What is it?
I don't know, but I'm going to Google it. I'll tell you that.
That Elliot who wrote that? Elliot, what is it? What is that?
I'm actually not too sure of the details, but I was talking with a friend who said they went through it and it worked for them. And they said it sounds kind of crazy, but they did it and it worked.
Hmm. Well, something that we can do some homework on for sure. Thank you. Okay, so I see ICE 2 has done some of that. Anyone in NYC or metro area that would like to connect? I think that's also something that you can ask in our Facebook groups for a tip that there, I know like for us, there is a Chicago area tip Facebook group. They're not as busy as the main ones are, but we do have one for like the Chicago area that people are in. So you may be able to like just search on Facebook to see if there is an NYC or surrounding area tip group already. Otherwise, you could ask in one of the Facebook groups that we have to see if anyone knows if there's additional, more local groups too to help. All right. And about the last one we'll do is about acupuncture. So I have not done acupuncture with my daughter. I don't know if that helps with tolerance. I don't know. I would say probably ask one of the providers and see if they have any information about that.
Right.
That's more medical based
These
for.
are all medical questions that
Yeah,
should all be redirected to the clinic.
for sure.
Mhm.
Yeah. Well, I want to thank everybody for coming and asking a bunch of questions. I think it's great conversation. Just, everybody can learn from everybody's questions and answers because we're all in this together, right? So, and thank you for everybody coming.
Yay. Stick with it.
Thank you so much for coming. I'll go ahead and I'll send an email right after this so that you'll get the recap, the slides. And if you want to be paired with a volunteer, just feel free to respond and I'll pair you up with somebody.
Thank you, everybody.
Thank you, Beth. Thank you, Leslie Ann.